Welcome back to another episode of the Working Class Fishing Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Brian, and here's the esteemed Mr. John Morris with our sponsors.
Welcome back, everyone, to the podcast. This episode of Working Class Fishing is brought to you by 317 Flies, Angry Rooster Fly Company, Lid Rig, Maxon Outfitters, and Morris Fly Co.
All right. Thanks, John. And tonight's special guest that we have is from my neck of the woods. He actually lives, I like to say, Dave, you live upriver from me because that's pretty much where you live. You live upriver. Yeah. We have Dave Eng. And for the folks here in the Pacific Northwest, you should recognize that name because he is the owner of Fisheng Products. And most of us all own some of Dave's leaderboards. And so I have mine right here. Well, one of many. This one's loaded up with mooching rigs. I took it out offshore doing some bottom fishing last week when we had a cooperative ocean, but I use them for steelhead leaders, steelhead jigs, steelhead worms on jig heads, everything else. But Dave also has a whole bunch of other products for boats and things like that. But to start off, Dave, thanks so much for taking the time to come on the podcast tonight.
Hey, love to. Thanks for having us. You know, we're hopefully can help a few people out with a few issues they're working with, whether it's, tackle management or boat storage.
Yeah. And your boat storage stuff is just, it's incredible. You've done a really good job of showcasing and marketing that out there. And your products are very unique in the way that they work and function and everything else. In addition to that, you're also a guide. And so you guide, now you guide spring Chinook, but you also guide sturgeon. And you and I kind of talked a little bit about steelhead, not something that you're doing a whole bunch of these days, but I'm sure if the opportunity arose, you would. But your products, this is something that's really unique because when I start thinking about like the leaderboards and the jig boards going way, way back, I think about when Grandpa was using old chunk of cork and he'd taken and he'd put his drift fishing rigs tied around the chunk of cork. But where'd you get started at with these products? Because they're super innovative and super available, and you have all kinds of cool tips to go along with them. How did all that get started?
About, I don't know, 10, 11 years ago, maybe 12 years ago, had a friend that was the buyer for Fisherman's Marine, one of the bigger West Coast tackle stores. And he had a product similar years ago that they just vanished, went out of business, couldn't track them down. And so he described it to me, and I actually had, used one or in the past and kind of forgot about it. And so having had a background in the packaging world before, we're going back 30 years now, with die cutting. So we started making the foam board just, with slots on it, and just kind of sanitized the whole wrapping line around cardboard. When we were kids, we used to, have a chunk of cardboard with, our leaders tied on it and wrote 15-pound test on it or whatever. So we remembered what it was. And that's kind of how it all got started. And then making it fit into a Plano box. I don't know if you can see that very well, but that's the medium size that I'm holding. We make one smaller, and then we make a larger one that this one, the large one we call the 06, the JLB 06, Jig Leaderboard -06. That is probably the one that really accelerated us to, we were doing pretty well with these, the smaller sizes, but then the larger ones just really, really sanitized how a guy could store super baits, spin fish, 3.5 spinners. They just kind of went from there. But I think the big key is being able to put it underneath a seat box, and have it, stored. And I go from spring salmon season to fall salmon, and the tackle's a little bit different, similar, or winter steelhead. I just take these things out and throw them in the garage. You can see they're all got little marks on them. This one says 3.5, and so it just, the storage of it and putting it underneath the seat box and not having stuff just jumbled up. And it started out, the wife and I would be in the living room with trying to develop carpal tunnel syndrome, and think, oh great, we got an order for 100 pieces, and we'd be stapling header cards on top of bags. And
Oh boy.
it obviously has grown significantly since then. And it's been very, very humbling to literally start in a garage. I mean, not that we're very far out of the garage, but when you see your products, on a TV show coming out of Michigan,
Yeah.
or, you go out in the Columbia River and, you see somebody pull out a leaderboard and pull it off. And, it's literally pretty humbling to have been part of that.
Well, I think it speaks volumes because you have a lot of years in our local fishing community here as a guide, but the simplicity of the innovation, that's the thing that makes it so cool, is that you were talking about tie-in leaders on cardboard, basically, and that's just what we got by with as kids. But these, you're not talking about some big high dollar product. That down at Fisherman's, these are $7.99, $8.
Yeah.
And the headache they save you is incredible, because yeah, mooching rigs, super baits, 3.5 spinners. You start rigging up 4 to 5 foot leaders, and you got line going everywhere. And if you got 40-pound test, 30, 25, depending on what you're fishing, that stuff has a heck of a memory on it if you're fishing mono, and it just turns into a big balled up mess. So the simplicity of this is incredible. But this is something that when you were prototyping it, were you like looking for different types of foams and stuff like that for that?
We did. We ran through several different kind of foams, different densities. This is kind of a high density soft foam and it's a closed cell. So by that, I mean, it doesn't absorb water inside the foam itself. So, I'm not going to say it's not waterproof, so to speak, but like a pool noodle, a lot of people use those and stuff, but those will absorb water. So if you throw it underneath a seat or something, and a month later you pull it out, your hook has a good possibility of not having a tip on it anymore because it rusted off.
Yeah. And
but like anything, you've got to somewhat take care of your tackle and management. I mean, I don't leave these in the side trays and run around saltwater.
Yeah.
I mean, I do, but at the end of the day, I shake it off and then throw it underneath the seat, so it's not just sitting there, but the water doesn't suck into it like a sponge.
Yeah, that's what I noticed.
We came up with one that was rigid enough to kind of have some body to it. Obviously it gets softer when it gets some heat on it and some sunshine, but it still holds its rigidity just fine. You mentioned simple, and that's kind of our mantra over here is, we try to steer from coming up with gadgets and stuff that's just too gadgety, I guess. It just stuff that just works.
Mm-hmm. Well, definitely, and that's the thing is, when you start looking at a lot of fishing gear, and you look at fly or conventional, and you start seeing all the different things that people are coming up with, like they have knot tying assist tools and things like that. And for the people that like to use that, more power to them. But some of these things are just like they're way over the top, and they become more clunky in a lot of different ways. But for some people that are inexperienced, they're not. But your boat products reflect that too. They're beautiful in their design, and they're highly functional in their design too. But the simplicity of how, like your rod holders and extensions work in a sled, it's just incredible. The leaderboards though, I mean, that's the start of your business. When you got going with these, I mean, since you're a guide, were you out guiding and kind of marketing these to clients and other folks on the river when you got started, or outside of the buyer?
So the guiding thing really got going about 6 years ago. Prior to that, and I still sell advertising for Salmon and Steelhead Journal magazine. So I'm still over with these guys here, very, very high-end, classy magazine.
Yeah.
And but I was with another magazine for 19 years, and I did the new products over there. And so and sold advertising. So throughout that, I was never able to take money for guiding, and I never did. So I finally got my license about 7 years ago, so that, when I took you and your family, just as friends or whatever, somebody I knew through the magazine, and then you call me up and say, "Hey, Dave, we had a great time with you. My uncle's coming to town. Can you take us salmon fishing next weekend? We'd like to hire you." Well, I'd have to steer you to a friend, because I wasn't a licensed guide. So that kind of drove me behind that. But the years that I've spent, selling advertising, I've made contacts with, most of the tackle stores up and down the coast from Alaska down, so I have, a pretty good Rolodex of how to, market stuff and get it in front of people. So that was a huge jump start. And, of course, the guys down at Fisherman's, I, can't speak highly enough of, how they've, embraced everything I've come out with, and, and thank God it sells for them, because, they're, if the product has to work, it has to be a good product, but, they're not going to just, carry you just because you're buddies,
Right.
But that, the leaderboards, we handed out an awful lot of them to get people using them. And once they used them, it was like, wow, this makes sense. I can store 20 super baits on a thing and throw it underneath a seat, and they're not all jumbled up. They're not, the hooks are good. They just change out what color they want. They're good to go. They can go from a rotten banana to a, or whatever. Or, hey, I'm going from spin fish to this or that. And so it's just, simple stuff that actually works.
Yeah, for sure. So we started with the leaderboards. Yeah, and John, cut me off if you want to jump in if you got questions for Dave.
No.
Because I'll have like 20 million, of course.
Well, that's fine. I just had a comment, being able to make a product that's useful for every angler is a very special thing. You don't have to be someone that's been fishing for 30 years to use one of your leaderboards. You can literally be brand new to the sport, and it's going to help you out. There's no learning curve to it. It's just instantly assisting you in your fishing adventures. So I want to commend you on just really bringing that product back into our hands.
Yeah, and you mentioned something there with, to any angler, and that, was something that's really helped us, because whether you're a walleye guy putting worm harnesses on, or a fly guy, you're sitting there tying flies, or a jig steelhead fisherman, they all work in our boards. So we didn't just come out with something that was just universal to a steelhead fisherman, and then, it sits on the shelf the other 11 months of the year. It works for good, jillions of, types of fishing and fishermen. Oh,
Yeah. Well, and like for John's a streamer guy predominantly. He's a predator fly angler, and he fishes streamers. And these boards, so the one that you had the super baits on, for people that don't know what a pack bait size is for a salmon, we have folks that listen and watch this that they're not familiar with our fishery. What would you say, Dave? 4 inches long or so
on the width of these?
On the length of that super bait.
Oh yeah, the super bait I believe is like, well, Spinfish measures them, 3.5,
Yeah.
4.0, 5.0. So anywhere up to 5 inches, and they got the little minis, the, kokanee cut plugs, or,
yeah, the KCPs.
Well, I can tell you exactly how it is. I just happen to have a tape measure here on my desk.
Yeah. So just so people have an understanding of the scale, I'll get you some of these, John, because I think, like, if you got the plano and you put your jigs on, or, your streamers on those, especially your big articulated ones, I think you'd like that, because I know you already have the fly boxes, but that would make a difference. What was that length on those?
4 1/4.
4 1/4. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, that's totally useful for, even for like, honestly, I was thinking about like bead rigs and stuff like that, like completely usable for literally every angler. It doesn't matter what you're doing; they're useful. So
Yeah, we're heading into steelhead season right now, and the bead rig guys are wrapping their beads on them because they're running a tandem set of hooks with a bead in between most of the time, and then running up to a tandem outfit, so you can just stagger huge numbers of beads on these, and like your big articulated streamers and stuff, they'll lay flat. They're not all crunched up in a box, especially when you're storing them for a few months before you get back out on the water.
Yeah. And that makes a big difference with that because, you look at the materials that you're tying those out of, even with the steelhead jigs, the marabou, whether it's strung marabou or if it's rabbit zonk or even twitching jigs for that matter. You see these guys, they throw a plano together and it's just stacked up full of twitching jigs. They pull it out and it looks like, one of those clowns pulling hankies out of their pocket on the river. Hey, there's freaking twitching jigs everywhere. Well, you take one of your leaderboards and you put those on there. Well, you don't have that mess anymore. Plus, you preserve the zonker strip, which is really what is helping to entice that bite and it produce, the hackle and the marabou around that jig. So,
we all were raised with the phrase "time is money," and that's the same thing with you're out there on the water for a limited amount of time every day, and the more time that you're in the water, and the less time you're monkeying with gear. So, if you call your buddy over there and he's cranking them on a clown colored spinner or whatever, you just grab your box and look in there and go, oh, one of those, and undo it and go. And you're not fighting it and this and that. So you know exactly what you got when you got it, and it's ready to go.
Yeah, you're like right there ready to go. You can get right into action.
And as a guide, sometimes the water conditions, like bouncing around Astoria out there, you got minimal time to you got a bite on a tide. So you got to have gear in the water. You might have a 10-minute window. It's going crazy, or that first light bite in the morning, and all of a sudden your stuff's not working. You got to get stuff in the water that is working. And, this should just help you stay more organized.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that part of it is huge. And you have a lot more things that have to do with organization. When did you go from the leaderboard to the boat accessories?
That was about 4 or 5 years ago. There was a guy that he has left. Him and I were partners for a bunch of years, and he made a tall extension, which was basically this guy here, but 15, 16 inches tall, just so he could get his rods out the transom taller. And somehow we hooked up, and he started, he had a machine shop at the time, and he machined the parts for me, and him and I sat down and figured out, besides the tall one, we wanted, everybody's got all these angled, trying to get rods out of their side of their car, or out of the boat, and get the butt handle out of your chest and that sort of stuff. So, we just came up with different, a basic generic set of, okay, we want short ones. Not everybody's going to want a tall one. So we came up with, I think there's 5 or 6 different sizes, but back to keeping it simple and keeping stuff that worked. We didn't want to just, we're not millionaires and this stuff is expensive to make. So, we came up with 6 sizes that work, allow you to open rod lockers. The bends, the bend on all of our products is up high enough so that if you have a rod locker door, it'll hinge past it, so that you don't have to remove the thing or slide it out of the way. And we made them in both plain aluminum and black anodized, but you can see all of them come up about yay far, and that allows enough for the majority. I haven't ran into a rod locker box yet with our new bends as of about 3 years ago that they don't clear.
Okay.
And you can see that one's got this is brand new. This one hasn't even been put out yet. This is our new 12-inch that we just came out with. But it moves your reel is going to be sitting about right here. So in the past, your reel's here, that means your rod butt is clear back here. So if this was sitting on the side of the boat, I got a rod butt right here in my chest in the old days. Now I've moved that rod butt and it's just more comfortable, as well as it keeps the spread. Typically you want to start your troll with your widest rods out in the front and then going narrower and narrower as they go to the back, so that when you turn the boat or whatever, you're also covering 6 feet on this side of the boat, 6 feet on this side. So you got stuff going through basically 12 feet of different areas in the water, and the depths are usually staggered, shorter in the front, longer in the middle, way long in the back with a little bit lighter lead. But when you start hanging a $200 to $600 rod and reel off of a extension, you want something that's not going to snap on you. And when you watch a Chinook, when you're trolling, it'll just flat plaster it. These don't give. I've had zero failure rate with them when used correctly. I did have a guy fold up an 8-inch up in Alaska, leaving it in the rod holder with halibut. And I'm like, well, that's not what it's designed for. I mean, it's not for putting a winch on the front of my car, not, and he chuckled about it because he sent me a picture with it. And,
at least he understood. I mean,
yeah, can you warranty this? I said, just because the way you told me I did. So, but
I mean, that's there's limits to everything. A barn door grabbing a circle hook and running off with the drag set tight and then having it folded up. There's going to be a difference between that and a 25-pound fall Chinook coming up and slamming your gear, while you're doing 2 miles an hour and you got current going this way and you're going upriver, you're uphill trolling and you got all that force. But that says a lot about the product, though. I mean, that it took. I don't know how big his halibut was that did that. It had to be a big halibut because the aluminum is pretty tough.
It's 3/8 machined plate aluminum. It's thick. It's not, I mean, I can use it for a foot stand to get in and out of my boat.
So John welds on aluminum trailers.
I do. I'm an aluminum welder.
So he's got a pretty good idea of the strength of that piece of material. Because I mean, you're welding on 1/4 inch at the thickest, John?
No, I mean our thickest probably gets up close to 1/2 inch.
Oh wow, okay, so it's heavier than I even thought it was.
Yeah, that's our biggest pieces though.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to think of the size of the fish that folded that up.
It have to be
well when running electric, literally running electric, reels on top of that, and you're just hitting their button. There's no give.
Yeah. Well, that rod's just buried in the water off the side, and that thing, when it shakes, it's just down on it.
We fish a lot of sturgeon here, and we get 8-9 footers, reasonably often over in the Willamette, and once in a while they'll pick it up and just slam it, but I've never bent one, so
the big difference between a electric reel and a conventional reel too. But
we also fight them holding the rod, not just
yeah. Oh wow. And then so you went to that rod extension. What was next after that?
So probably the rod station, and again, this was the other guy's product, and I don't know if you can see that quite.
Oh yeah.
But you've got a place here. It comes with a Tupperware little Glad bowl here, or the top can. The J hook on your rod just slams in there. So this is mounted on your gunnel, and you got a place to put your rod. So when you're traveling across like Astoria in the morning, I got all my boats, my people ready to go. When they jump in the boat, your flasher will slide right behind here.
You want to hold
Just
that up a
loosen
little
these
higher,
two
Dave?
screws.
Can you hold that up a little higher, please?
There we
Oh,
go.
there you go. There you go. Okay.
So these two screws here loosen up a little bit.
Okay.
This is on a slide. So you can slide this out a tiny bit, and then your flasher, and I'll pull some pictures up on my phone and show you, but the flasher will just slide in behind there, and this will take up to a 20-ounce sinker.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So your rod's here, your sinker's here, your flasher's here. And, I do a lot of bait fishing too, a lot of hover fishing and stuff. And with that little, glad bowl, it saves the cleanup on my boat huge.
Oh yeah. Well, you get that juice going everywhere, especially if you're hover fishing. I mean, you're hovering eggs, and that's just the thing with it. But look at that. That just drops right in there in that rod station.
So that's the rod station fits right behind your extension.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got everything right in one spot. Sticks out the minimal into the boat. We didn't want to build these things, with a bunch of variations to it. We wanted to keep it kind of typed up to the edge of the boat and keep the boat a boat.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll keep all that interior space inside the gunnels for the people inside.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that sets up is just slick. I mean, at the end of the day, you just, instead of having to screw around with, unscrewing or unlocking, you just unscrew that, pop it out, store it, and it's done.
Yeah,
it's clean.
So they come, right and left hand, because, this has got to be on the other side for the other side of the boat.
Mm-hmm.
So it works out pretty well that way. Everything's built with stainless and aluminum and, UHMW or Seaboard. And so it's all pretty much bomb proof as far as, longevity.
Yeah. I mean, that's just super cool. And having the lead management too, as you get lead flying around in a boat, that can be that can be a trip to ER in a hurry.
Yeah. So when I get done at the end of the day, I literally unclip the lead, especially at the moorage, I'm just sitting there and I just pop them in there. But even I tow back and forth to Bonneville every day, or down, with, 12 to 16 ounces in there. Once in a while, I'll hit the railroad tracks wrong and it'll bounce out, but it's inside the boat, so I'm going to find it. You know. But for the most part, I've loosened the line up on your rod, so when you're traveling across the bay, you got your rod kicked right there, and I look over and the guy's rod's arch, so it looks like a bow and arrow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it turns into a bow and arrow, so when you hit a bump, comes down, that rod's loaded up. It pulls that sinker out. Well, when it pulls the sinker out, it grabs the flasher next. And I'm only speaking from experience watching a flasher go by my head. And then I had a 3-piece rod, and it was only supposed to be 2.
Oh,
because it snapped the rod, and it was just, it was stupidity on our part that, the guy had not pulled the tension off the line when he set the sinker down, and it acted just like a bow and arrow when we hit that first big wave. Boom. But
I know what you're talking about, because I've watched things fly around a boat, especially crossing a bar. You have every good intention, and all of a sudden something comes out of, crossing buoy 10, going out in the ocean. Something comes out of nowhere. It's a big bar, and it just boom, and everything's flying everywhere. You're like, where did that come from? Well, it's the Columbia and the Pacific meeting. I mean, it's a big area, but man, those products, though, they're again simple, straightforward, easy for the person to use. Obviously, those are more of the the sled oriented. They can be used on a windshield boat as well in the correct configuration.
Yeah, exactly. And if you got rails, we have a lot of our stuff has been done, finished, just haven't had the time to get it on the website. So if you see something, give us a call, because like this rail mount, I just sold the guy with the North River that wants to put extensions up on his bow. He's got the little stainless up there in the front. Well, we make a rail adapter that isn't on the website yet, but we've made it, and got a few other things out there that hopefully by the first week or so of January, we'll have the website with new photos and updated and all that stuff. But, you're looking at a true mom and pop shops that wears multiple hats. So
Absolutely. Yeah. So I guess, outside of the products and everything else, and what you've showcased so far as products are, the fishing part of it. I always, and John usually asks this, and I'll just jump in here and we can go from there. When did you get started fishing? I gotta know.
well, I've always been a little fish junkie, when I was a little kid, I just couldn't go enough. And I grew up in West Lynn, and when I was 8, 9 years old, we were able to ride our bicycles down to the local creeks and stuff. And then if anybody's ever fished West Lynn, they remember the old catwalk down, which is now the Fish and Wildlife has a big concrete dock there, but the fishing isn't as good as it used to be. There used to be 75 guys lined up on that old catwalk every morning casting blades. And I kind of grew up there, and I was probably 9 years old or so. And I caught my first Chinook there in front of the concrete block. The neighbors had a dory boat, and they took me out, and I think we were in the 4th grade, and took me out for my birthday. And I wheeled that chrome. I got a picture downstairs I'll grab. I wheeled that Chinook around in a wheelbarrow for about a week, showing all the neighbors my fish. And that started it all. And my dad wasn't much of a fisherman, but he would cart me down to the river when he had time. And just I couldn't get enough of it growing up. And then, like I said, we had the opportunity, and we were kids, whether it was little tiny cricks or casting spinners off the rocks to catch a Chinook in Oregon City, West Lynn. And a lot of my friends' dads were, big time fishermen and stuff. So, my dad grew up in the Midwest, so, he knew a little bit about walleye, but his salmon knowledge was not there. But
I couldn't imagine.
Cents.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine what that was like. I honestly can't. I was probably 9 or 10 when I got my first Springer, and it was on the channel plunking. And some friends of my parents, they were like, "Hey, we're going to take you out salmon fishing." I was like, "Cool." I've always wanted to catch a salmon. Like I spent all this time trying to catch a salmon on the Clackamas, and this is back, early 90s, right? And I'd try and try it. And I didn't know what I was doing. I was trying to drift fish, and I probably had way too much lead, way too big of a hook, didn't have it tied right. All the stuff a kid does, nobody to really show you. And then they took me out and they sat us up, and I saw spinning glows, and I was like, wow, okay, that's what that works for. I remember my dad plunking with them down at Meldrum, but I didn't really know what was going on. And these guys, they start plunking in between the dolphins up there, and bang, bells going off, everything else. Here, go grab that fish. And that was it.
And being with somebody that's, somewhat knowledgeable, or being around, and I'm not trying to sell guide trips or anything, but growing back, 40 years, if I could have started over, I would have saved my money, or had, begged my dad for a birthday present, instead of more tackle, buy a guided fishing trip, so that you learn what you're doing. Like you just said, spin glows and hooks. I remember trying to use like a Kenai size spin glow, because I didn't know any better. These guys were fishing spin glows. So, in my mind, I'm thinking, 10 years old, the bigger, the better,
Mm-hmm.
So I got a Kenai that'll float a, 4-pound glob of eggs, and, spent lots and lots of hours wasted not fishing effectively. And, so, my suggestion to a lot of people is look, you don't have to hire me by any stretch, but hire somebody that's willing to share a little bit and teach you about fishing, instead of, there's guys that are going to clam up on you and, think they're selling you the secrets to put somebody on Mars. But, there's a lot of good guys out there, a lot of good guides that are willing to, they're in the business to put smiles on faces, and that's hopefully what they do, whether it's in their boat or somebody else's boat. The day that you can help me, and maybe I'm struggling, I sent, some guy home with a smile, because you said, hey, they're smashing red and white blades today, you know. And now I'm over there, you know, running a spinner, you know, a spin fish or something, and they've been all blades all day. So, you know, if we can help each other and, you know, send somebody home with a smile, that's what it's all about.
That's 100%, Dave. You nailed that, and there's just, I mean, that's really what it's all about at the end of the day. And guides, I think, make connections a lot faster. You find out real quick, you know, who you think is a good guy or gal, and then who's not, and you share with the people that are willing to share with you, and that helps out so much, man.
Yeah, I mean, I had a kid last year or the year before. I was just in the perfect position to get a phenomenal shot. He had a double, and I took just a couple of great shots. And all of our cell phones these days are, you know, magazine quality photos. And so the next time I went by him, I said, "Hey, what's your number? I'll send you these pictures." And he asked me why I did that. And I said, "I don't know, maybe that was your grandpa's last trip, or that kid was his first salmon. And, you know, I would appreciate, you know, if somebody was in a good position to get one for me and my clients, that they would do that. I mean, it didn't cost me anything. It wasn't like I, you know, pulled my boat out of the water and went and got a camera. You know, I was just in the right place. And, you know, I could almost literally see the light bulb go on in his head, like, oh yeah, that's it. That was great. Thank you." But, you know,
It doesn't cost anything to be a good person.
yeah. You know, like I said, there's a lot of guys that are more than happy to share what they're doing or tell you their leader lengths, or, you know, that what, you know, in your business, the fly world, you know, there's a lot of good guys that'll share what they're doing as well. You mean, you're not going to catch the last fish, I'm not going to catch the last one. And if we,
No.
you know,
Now, I think that's a really important thing, and I think it's a really important thing to come from somebody like yourself to express that, and it's universal across fishing. Is, you know, we have all this great knowledge of our local fisheries, and it's really good to share it, because you know, at a certain point, yeah, you can hit critical mass with the amount of people out fishing, but let's be honest with it, not everybody has the patience to fish for the same fish that we fish for. Not everybody has the patience to fish for long-nosed gar like what John does, especially on the fly. They'd rather go, you know, the easy way to do that is to put on a big float and throw a chunk of cut bait out there and wait for the fish to eat it. But John goes after him on the fly, and he's figured out how to get him on the fly, and he shares that with a lot of people. And he's like, hey, you know what? If you want to go have a real ride on a fly rod, come catch one of these 50 to 60 inch, you know, prehistoric fish for yourself. You know, talking about, you know, fishing the Willamette or the Columbia, you know, we start talking about that. Those fisheries can be very finicky, especially with salmon, because, you know, once they hit freshwater, all bets are off. You know, saltwater, yeah, they're voracious, but freshwater, the game changes a lot. And so if you're in the hog line out there, and you're banging them on, you know, K14s or K16s, that's great if you're anchor fishing. But if you're getting them on a 3.5, like a Mexican hat blade or a red and white or a, you know, a pink dot or something, you know, say, hey, this is what I'm getting them on. Don't say, well, I'm going to hog all these fish up, because even if you're just hooking all high fin fish, it's still fish that you can go out and have fun with, you know. But I think one of the biggest things is that I don't think that there's ever any waste of a trip. Like, you hear people say, well, I don't want to waste my gas money to go out and try to fish for steelhead. Steelhead are pretty darn elusive, you know. That's what makes them fun. It's like muskie. There are fish at 10,000 casts. Yeah, you'll get on them one day, and they'll be, you know, right there. They could be in your backyard right now, Dave. I mean, not that there's a lot, but they could be right in your backyard. Or they could be, you know, hanging out down around the corner, or who knows, you know, and sometimes it's like that. And some days, you know, everybody's like, man, it's a red hot bead bite. Well, you know, the next day they're hitting worms or jigs, or they only want to eat sand shrimp. But if you share that information, at least it gives the person a little bit of hope to be able to hook up.
Yeah, I mean, especially sharing techniques and, that sort of stuff. I'm not going to call people up and say, run up to my house and go up an eighth of a mile, walk up my neighbor's bank and stand on the white rock. But,
Yeah.
hey, if we're getting them on, white jig heads with pink worms, or, a nightmare jig, or, something, if somebody asks, I'm going to tell them. I mean, I'm not going to, I don't try to get on the internet and, blab it. But, we're all in the business to, promote our businesses and stuff. But I think there's a fine line of, I grew up with kind of the old school mentality, just kind of keep your mouth shut and, don't, I mean, we even painted our nets black back in the day up at the falls, because, you didn't want somebody, your net flashing and, hey, look at me, and I try not to be the look at me guy, but I'm certainly willing to try to share information to help you catch fish. And, it's pretty cool. I shared with an old gentleman, older. I'm one of them old guys now. But about 4 years ago, there was a guy up at Bonneville, and I saw him about every morning launching his boat, him and his dog, and dog kept barking at me. And one morning he walked over and was talking to me about how I was rigging, and he was fishing, like I said earlier, like the big spin glow. He was fishing basically the same thing we were, but his leader lengths and everything were just goofy. I mean, we're all fishing 24 to 30 inch behind a spinner, and 18 to 24 up to our bumper in front of our approach hole. And, he's got leaders, like 12 and 6 inches and stuff. And, I had a extra spinner that was been, really hot, and I gave it to him, and I saw him the next morning, and he had actually caught a fish, and he was just ecstatic. And I was, that made my day better than it made his, so.
How much he learned just from that. That's that type of knowledge, going from having, those weird later lengths to just having I guarantee you he hung on to that. He probably went home and he cut all of his spinner lengths. He's like, I got to get this right, because that, I mean, everything from the flasher bumper to the spinner length to the amount of lead we're running, the depths, all that just totally changed his perspective on it, just by that one kind thing that you did.
Well, and and I don't think I'm very different than the average guy, because there's those days that I'm looking around going, my God, what are they doing? They got another one, and I'm dumb enough to sit there with my clients in the boat going, hey, look, Ralph's got another one. Wonder what he's using, pointing out because they're on their phones and not paying attention, and I should just let it go. But hey, look, they got another, trying to keep people excited. And then you start playing the mind games in your head, and you're doing everything you did for the week prior, and you've limited your boat every day for a week. And then all of a sudden you're not getting bit, and you're going in your head. Am I going too slow? Am I going too fast? Is my bait bad? Is it, did they, and you start playing these mind games, and you just got to, power through that and just tell yourself like, hey man, you're catching as many as anybody on any given day. Just keep doing what you're doing, make a few phone calls, don't live on your phone. But, hey, I got some pretty good guys I pal around with. And Jason, what are you catching them on over there? Well, I got, that last one on a Coast Guard or a copper Mexican hat. And, just keep doing what you're doing, and your turn's coming up. But everybody gets a turn in that barrel, of, oh my God, I'm not getting bit. I'm not getting bit. My bait's bad,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so what do you got planned here for the future? I mean, and we'll make sure that people get your contact information at the end of this, but what do you got planned coming around here this next year, Dave?
As far as, just keep doing what I do. The phone just kind of takes care of itself on the guide trips. I don't spend a whole lot of time looking. I'm hooked up through a couple of websites that do pretty well. And then I've, got a pretty good, clientele of repeat business. So from that side, and my wife does a phenomenal job of keeping the wheels on the bus here at the, at the shipping. And, she knows every aspect of that, and reordering when we're low on materials and stuff. And so from that aspect, other than just kind of trying to work on some, we got new products that we're in the midst of getting onto the market. Like I said, that little 12 inch is, hasn't even, 3 or 4 of these things have not even hit, mainstream, and we can't keep them in stock. So, you start dumping a bunch of money in, and it's like, wow, we better order more of those, And, so we just keep doing that. But like the sliding rail thing, I don't know, I have to pull it up on my phone, but this is most boats come with a rail on it that has a slider. And all of our brackets fit Scotty, Fullby, Fish on. So if your Scotty was here, pull it off, put our bracket on, put our extension in, and then put your slider or your Scotty back up here. Now you've got an extension. But there's a fair amount of boats that don't have sliding rail systems on them. And we came up with one that looks like it came on the boat. So when, it's rubber coated aluminum secured to the side of the boat, works incredibly well. And it like I said, the biggest thing is it looks like it came on the boat, but function is credible. It comes pre-drilled every foot. We don't have it on the website because everything's been custom. We don't sell a 4-foot chunk because most people want to do their whole boat. And I'll show you a video real quick, but you can't tell the difference if this came on a boat or if you added it, versus there's some other ones out there that just had, they were just plain raw aluminum. And I didn't want a fishing rod. If this pencil was a rod, I didn't want to lean, a $400 fishing rod on a chunk of aluminum. I'd sit there and rub back and forth. So, and, most of the time these are up around where your hips are and stuff. And it's just a more aesthetically pleasing. So we started making the sliders for, to fit various boats, but we made that particular rail system. Oh, here's another new product. I don't know if you can see that, Worth.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I want to get one of those for my drift boat.
Yeah. We made a tool holder that, again, it's on our website, but we've sold out of them twice. I've got a big pile of getting at the machine shop right now. I have a shop, we design it and then we, proof it and make sure it works. And then I have a machine shop that I contract with that builds our parts. But here's a aftermarket rail on a 25-foot North River we did 2 days ago.
Wow.
North Rivers don't come with sliding rails on them, or this one didn't. So, we did the whole thing in about 3 hours. Flat bar and rubber, start to finish.
Oh, so
Wow.
you guys do the installs also?
Well, I try not to. I try to just sell it to you because it is super, super easy. Here's, there's the aluminum getting installed. For say a guy like you down in Texas, I would sell you the rubber, the fasteners and the spacers, and just tell you to go to your local aluminum yard and buy some 1/4x2 flat bar and just pre-drill it and countersink it every foot, bolt it on there with the spacer behind it. And, it's not rocket science. Just drill and tap and run some Loctite on the threads, slap the rubber over the top, and you're good to go. So that has pretty much exploded. A week ago, I had 400 feet of rubber on the garage floor and I have like 12 feet left. We did a couple of North Rivers and I did my personal little boat of mine just because I make this stuff, but 2, I wanted sliding rails in it. I didn't want to be stuck with where they had that stuff. What else we got going?
Well, I definitely want to get one of those tool holders. That's just wow, because I'll usually wear my wader belt with my scissors and pliers, but just to have that available in a different location, like up by my rower seat or something, would be super nice.
Yeah, everything's where it's supposed to be. It's like, hey Jeff, hand me the pliers. They're right where they're supposed to be. Hey, hand me that bait knife. I got to cut herring. It's in the tool holder. It's kind of like a tackle box for exposed tools, and having a drift boat, the guy in the front was using the pliers and next guy in the back had them. And now you can't, somewhere in between.
Yeah, you got a
16
fish
feet is a pair
thrashing
of
in the net
pliers.
and you're trying to play musical chairs with the pliers.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, those are, I'm excited to see the new products. You're going to be at the Sportsman Show, won't you?
I will be at the Sportsman Show. We typically don't get a booth. We typically just, help the people that are, helped us all year long. Other than, I might have some new products there to kind of showcase. That'd be the only reason to have a booth, because I'm not going to go in and, sell products out from underneath, the people that have supported me all year long.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's an awesome policy to have as a business.
Well, it's not rocket science. Don't bite the hand that feeds you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't know if did you see our blade box yet?
I have not.
Well, this is another one of those deals. It wasn't my invention. A guy in the Midwest, and I saw it and said, that fits our product line perfectly. So I partnered with a guy out of the Midwest.
Oh man. Oh, I'm sitting over here looking. I won't show the brand name, but yeah, I need that in my life.
So we have sold out of them like 3 different
Oh,
times.
you've got good blades in there too.
We're finally getting caught up.
Over
People
here.
say, well, I checked your website. I'm not putting it on my website till I've got them in stock, because I don't want to. You order it, then I got your money and you got no product. And then you're blowing up my phone saying, hey, I ordered it a week ago. Well, when you see how much labor goes into these boxes, but now I got all my blades in one box. And it's pretty bomb proof. We think we're at the caught up point.
Mhm.
So we'll be putting them back on the website, hopefully in the next week.
Awesome. Well, Dave, I hate to cut this one off because this is, I love fishing gadgets and everything else, but we are coming up on our hour here.
Already?
Yeah, already. It flies. Time flies when you're having fun. So if people, obviously you have your website, and that's fishengproducts.com.
Or just fishing.com.
Fisheng.com. Okay.
With an E.
Okay. So, if people want to check out Dave's products, if you want to get yourself some of these jig and leaderboards, definitely anybody out there fishing, these are universal to everybody, and they're a super awesome product. But if people want to just talk to you, anything else, where's a good place for people to get in touch with you at, Dave?
Shoot me an email or give me a call on my cell phone. My phone number's on the website, and it's just 503-341-8863. I mean, I am, not so important that I can't talk to everybody that calls.
That's a good policy. I love that when I message you, you're like, hey, give me a call. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll give Dave a call. That sounds good.
I'm old school.
Yeah, that's fine. I like that because it's an actual human being on the other side. That's what works out so well. Let's see. John, you got anything else to add before we wrap this up tonight?
No, not really. Dave, just thanks for coming on, man. I know I didn't ask you a lot of questions, but this is kind of like out of my realm of what I know. But what I do know is that you make handy products, and now I've got to see them firsthand. And it makes sense, dude. As a fabricator, right? I really appreciate what you've done with your designs. So, Dave, but man, just thanks for taking time out of your evening and coming on and talking with us, dude.
Thanks for having us. Without guys like you, there is no guys like us. So we appreciate it greatly.
Absolutely. Well, yeah. And thanks again, Dave. I will probably be at that CCA meeting tomorrow. So that's one thing we didn't get a chance to talk about was the CCA tonight. But of course, we can always talk about that at a later date. Dave, it was so awesome to have you on. You're a big part of our Pacific Northwest fishing community here, from the products you make to guiding to being an ambassador for the fisheries. And thank you again for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having us. If you guys need anything, you know where to find me.
Absolutely. Well, everybody, that's going to wrap up this episode. Make sure that you go check us out on all of the major listening platforms out there. If you want to get in touch with us, you can email us at workingclassfish@gmail.com, or you can look us up on any one of the social media platforms that we are on. You'll either talk to myself or you might talk to John. You can always also reach out to us through John's Instagram page, Morris Fly Co. He can always answer questions for you or relay any messages, or you can reach out to me through mine, PNW Vintage Fishing. So until next time, thank you everybody for listening. We hope you all have a great day. And John, what else they need to do?
Eat your vegetables.
That's right. Thank you.
You guys take care.